Good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to Story Hour. I'm your host, Daniel Marcus. My esteemed co-host is 2023 Shirley Jackson Award finalist, Laura Blackwell. And if that is news you have not heard yet, you're welcome. And I'm almost as excited as Laura is. Not quite, but nearly so. So I hope that you're all healthy and safe and taking care of yourselves and your loved ones. I started Story Hour early in 2020, lockdown, very strange and dark times. And my intention was just creating a place where my writer friends and I could get together once a week and share our work with each other and build some community. Very shortly after I kicked it off, I asked my friend Laura to join me as co-host. And here we are, 4.5 years later, every week, except for the week between Christmas and New Year's, bringing you what we like to think is some of the best in spoken word speculative fiction from pretty much every corner of the very wide and broad tent of speculative fiction. So the way this works is pretty simple. We invoke a ancient and time-honored form of entertainment, which is folks sitting around the fire telling lies to each other. And many millennia later, here we are. And every week we have two authors, and we do exactly that. So this week, tonight, we're delighted to welcome Eliane Boey and Vajra Chandrasekera. And we are going to kick it off with Eliane this evening. Eliane is a Chinese Singaporean writer and a SIFWA member with short stories in Clark's World, The Pen Review, and Weird Horror, among other places. Her first book, Other Minds, was published by Dark Matter, Inc. in September 2023. Eliane read philosophy at the University of St. Andrews, but wound up working with ships and ports. You can find her on Twitter at Eliane Boey, B-O-E-Y, or Instagram at author.eliane. So, Eliane, welcome back. Take it away. The floor is yours.
Good day. I'm going to be reading Contango, which is my story in Dark Matter 16. There are no very serious conventional trigger warnings for this, except for a slight amount of self-harm through binge eating and lots of fintech words. So, if you still have PTSD from that old corporate job, perhaps stay away from this or just listen in anyway. Okay, and this story is actually a bit longer. It's got figures and interviews, but I'm probably going to cut that out so that it fits the time. Okay, I'm going to start. Contango. It doesn't feel like 4 years ago, but that's when I first saw the word launch itself into a dance above my head. One of far-reaching wings and long legs. At the time, I was a junior trader at Lee & Lee Derivatives, and trying to make everyone forget that I was not only the singular non-finance major on the floor, but modern history at that. The market was in contango, the desk head said, and I nodded, pointed finger guns, like I knew. Contango, now, of the stock market. The situation where the future price of a commodity exceeds the spot, i.e. current price of the commodity. It's that simple, except it isn't. It wasn't until human race began minting the IRL collection NFTs, in particular, our Hot Pot project, that I would truly understand what Contango meant. Although, to be more exact, it was when we started predicting and thus with any derivative influencing the future of IRL captures that I saw the tangle of wings and limbs again, headed for me. Poor Jerry was so proud. We both were. Knowing what happened, it's easy to ask why we didn't see it coming. But you must understand that before human race, it was just money at stake. It was only much later that the currency changed from SG bits to lives. But I'm ahead of myself. When this begins, this is a story about minting the future. And there's a table here. The hired model in the unicorn head mask tipped the fluorescent yellow contents of a cup into the rolling hot pot broth, taking care that the sticker on the side of the cup, which read La La Lemon Dishwashing Detergent, was visible. The unicorn gave 2 thumbs up and exited the shot. Ix tapped the screen of the phone on the tripod. He raised a fist in the air while he cut and saved a segment. The teaser would serve as an introduction to the project in case anyone stumbled out of a data jam cave and upon Human Race's RL collection in the Tumpang market platform. Ix opened the fist and pointed forward with a brief nod, without looking up from the phone. On the other side of the lens, Jerry, known on Tumpang as Aso, dipped a red, oversized melamine soup spoon into the steaming brown broth and raised it to his lips. Ix monitored the movement, lifting the tripod and the phone with it. Aso twitched, wrinkled his nose over the spoon. He held his face long enough to the steam so that his large glasses fogged up in comic effect. With his eyes obscured, he took a sip. Ix licked his lips. Then Aso sputtered and clutched his throat. His other hand beat the foldable card table which balanced the hot pot plate and the boiling pot of soup. I stood and reached for the bottle of water. Ix touched my arm. He's fine. Look at your display, Jin. The offer for second half of April outcome Merlion was up by 0.85 SG bits to 0.98 and climbing. Merlion, named for the mythical Singaporean sea creature immortalized as a water fountain of Marina Bay, stood for the outcome where Aso. A gurgle was heard from over the rolling boil. Aso covered his mouth with one hand. Ix tilted his head towards the Tumpang Market Square board, offers at 0.98. That bid is going to reach 0.8 in 10 minutes. Ix's eyes never left the Market Square board. Where they left us with no takers just this morning, I said. I caught a glimpse of the noise in the chat windows, the private ones, where our whales and the bigger channels for retail lots were. Aso made a guttural cough and beat his chest with a fist. I could see the red veins at the corners of the staring eyes. Then the cough became a wheeze and withered into a flatulent laugh. Better luck next time, sickos, Aso roared. He took up his chopsticks, tapped the narrow points hard on the table, and grabbed a slice of marbled pork belly, submerged in the broth for a mere second before he lifted it again, and it vanished into his mouth in a moist flourish. Lemon pork, my favorite. Ix released the breath slow and strained beside me. I looked at his face in his hands, and then at the Market Square board, offers at 0.78 and falling. No takers, an outcome Merlion. Well, glad to see you're all right, Jerry, I said 3 minutes later when the recording was done. Ix pulled his phone off the tripod and dropped it in his pocket. Yeah, bro, close call. The first NFTs we minted for Human Race were static pieces of The first NFTs we minted for Human Race were static pieces of digital art. It was hard to divorce Jerry from the tragicomic Aso, but most people forget that it really was just Jerry and I in the beginning. It was Jerry who forwarded me the articles and interviews by fiat currency and market traditionalists. I believe one of the memorable soundbites was from Warren Buffett. The moment was sometime in May 2021, when most of the adult population of Singapore was conscientiously performing collective non-panic by calmly stockpiling toilet paper and instant noodles and buying chest freezers for the second wave of lockdowns, while screaming behind closed doors and venting on social media. Jerry and I were chatting on Discord. Disappointing, Jerry wrote. Doesn't he see it's a new asset class? I typed back. Guys like Warren Buffett made their fortune in blue chip stocks. Businesses with locations you can visit, making products you can touch. Bitcoin doesn't feel real to him. In my first spring as an undergrad, my dad told me that summer backpacking or volunteering at an elephant sanctuary was for guailos who will regret their lack of foresight later in life, or kids of parents who owned or at least occupied C-suite offices in conglomerates. To that end, he gave me a popular bookstore bag of books on investment theory and a book about Toyota management's strategy, a name card of a friend from his army days who was now a remiser, which is apparently greater than a stockbroker. Jerry wrote, it's a lack of regulation that he fears, but he's conflating that with the needlessness of crypto. When has unnecessity been a barrier to a thing having value? Bitcoin doesn't have to replace the dollar to have a recognized value. I wanted to drink up the hype and be as amped as Jerry was, but it had been a week at work. Every new asset class begins life as an unregulated frontier town. Give it a year. The fun and profit will be strangled from it. Just look at freight futures. Jerry wrote back, this isn't bloody shipbuilding, Jin. A year is at least an entire cycle in crypto. We can still catch this one, Jerry typed, upside down smiley emoji. Jerry had been a top-tier government scholar who would have had a great shot at being a top bureaucrat by now if it sat up straight at his desk and volunteered for grassroots community work instead of enjoying his weekends. He pretended to be himself. He pretended to himself that his discharge was recent. In reality, it'd been 10 years of trying his hand at selling bonds before finally admitting that his hands were always in his pockets, and he was never going to be promoted beyond senior analyst. I was plodding along at Eliane and thought myself doing all right when I was shunted from freight futures trading floor to research. HR assured me it was due to my aptitude for analysis, but the look on the face of Lee Jr. the day before I was called in for a chat told me otherwise. Jerry wrote, "My sister's partner is in digital design. She can hook us up with the right artist." I snorted aloud. The sort who can design yet another gorilla in a diving suit with a box of fries on its head? Yeah, well, and there's still the problem of wide enough transmutability. I minimized the Discord window because it was nearly time for the second of my 4 daily Zoom check-ins at Eliane. That was when my phone buzzed, and despite how I thought it was on silent, I'd only ever used my screen as a remote control to cast media to speakers on my monitors. Dad, Hui Jun, in regards to Lee Jr.'s remarks on your reassignment, I wouldn't say I'm the superstitious sort, but I threw the phone into my backpack like a leaking battery and clicked to maximize the Discord chat. And that, with a few details best skipped over, was how Raise was made. I had never heard of X in the year between Jerry and I getting Human Raise off the ground, but all of a sudden, he managed to locate and corner us at every crypto and fintech startup event we attended. I don't remember exactly how I came to speak with him. It could have been the both of us reaching for the prawn, Ibico, and avocado maki at the same time, at one of the coin cons funded by Singapore's Economic Development Board in hopes that the technology would stick. The point is, X found us just as Human Raise became something to watch. And then he was simply there all the time until we plateaued out with our first 5 NFT art projects. X would tell the press that he watched our star from afar and approached us after we'd made our first fiat million and were ready for the big time, ready for him to say something grander and more visionary than what he really did, which was, you could make a whole project of just close-ups of Jerry eating mala hot pot. At that moment, Jerry was chewing on some poached meat, which was clearly scalding his mouth, but he refused to release the food, instead moving it around to spread the burn in a huffing, blowing volleyball juggle. Sure, like a mukbang, but in 40-second clips to match the life cycle of one slice of meat. It could work. People willingly subscribe and pay to stream mukbang, said X. I was trying to remember which of us had invited X to join us for Hot Pot, or if it simply invited himself, and I still don't have the answer. What do you say, Jerry? At least that's something to populate our market page with before the termites project is ready. We never minted videos until then, least of all for ourselves in them. Jerry said, "Got your phone?" We called the project Prawn Head because the prawn shelling sequence was what we decided on minting when we looked over the footage later. We cut it standing around the dual screen monitors of the Hive on Carpenter Street, where Jerry paid for virtual office space. Prawn Head was a collection of 20 videos of Jerry shelling and eating a mala hot pot poached shrimp. At the time, we thought the attraction was the banality of the slow shrimp shelling and the general unexplained pop culture interest in crustacea. What I didn't realize was that the pull was really in the grimace of pain on Jerry's face at the heat of the shell in his hands, and then the flesh burning in his mouth. Jerry thought it was good fun and a useful spot of promo for Human Raise. If Vix understood what exactly we were minting and selling, he said nothing. The night that Prawn Head registered Raise's highest ever volume on the market, X showed up at my flat with Jerry already in his GTR to drive us to Al Amin for supper. We ordered mutton murtabak, a stack of egg pratas, and tall dusty Milo dinosaurs, and tried to locate our appetites. X had tonic water. I've contributed significantly, he said, to the growth of Human Raise since joining you. And the take on Prawn Head tonight shows it. Human Raise is at the tipping point of its next growth surge, and I'd like to take it to the next level as CEO. Jerry pulled the straw out of his Milo dinosaur and licked the chocolate slush off and shrugged. I said, we'll think about it. When I got home, I asked Billy Wongso, who was one of the local-based coin pioneers and Razor's mentor source, what he knew about X. Wongso breathed cigarette smoke onto the speaker and said, I don't know anything about X at all, except that he's bounced around the startup circuit, and the only consistent thing about him is that he's a shark. Shark being a positive metaphor in this case? I asked. To drive Race forward? Wongso said, what do you want for your company? Human Razor's first IRL collection, fronted by the expanded Prawnhead series, hit the ground running. We took advantage of the double hype from a wave of high-yield Prawnhead flips, which involved a few local celebrities and regional royalty, and our new CEO's virtual publicity tours to shoot and add a few more sub-projects. There's one that lives on the metaverse as a meme. It's of me falling asleep and sliding off the couch in slow motion. In those few first weeks, I watched X jump from Discord room to Telegraph channel to Zoom conference to recording video interviews, and it was easy to believe that I relished working closely with Jerry again, with our headphones on most of the time, doing what we set out to do in the beginning, and not having to fix the smile on my face or filter words for an audience. Human Race moved into a glass-walled room at the co-working space, which we now paid proper rent on because we could no longer pretend to be invisible, even as I told myself that I wanted the invisibility. We were picking coin up like shells on the beach until Race hit its second growth plateau the night we dropped what would be the last sub-project in our IRL series. We had been seeing healthy volume, and the usual percentage of unique wallets were interacting. When 2 hours into the drop party, the music stopped. Volume deflated, the chatter on our official channels cooled, and we soon saw our freshly minted tokens offered down the chain at numbers we were embarrassed to acknowledge. Under the green and yellow awning at El Amin at 4 a.m., X said, we need to start doing things differently. Jerry looked sideways at me, and I saw the idea slot into place, rose slowly along the marble run, and into position. There's a trend I saw recently. Some guys were talking about filming their own alternative outcomes to the IRL project and minting them. You mean fan videos? That could be good hype if we made them link it back to us, said X. Or we could do it ourselves, I said. We have the means. X upended a saucer of vegetable curry over his egg prata. He spread it with the back of a spoon, waited for it to soak through, and then cut it all into small pieces before he even began to eat. A choose-your-own adventure of NFTs are like that, he said. No, I mean like a derivative, because if you think about it, that's not such a different exercise in determination. Play a choose-your-own adventure, and you decide by setting a direct course from spot. Choose to trade derivatives, and you influence the future by what you bet on and when. I'll have to think on that. In the meanwhile, check your inbox, X. We need an answer to the email from the Terra dude. I stirred the undissolved Milo powder into the rest of my drink under the fluorescent white lights and the slow-moving ceiling fans where just months ago, X had invited himself into Raise, telling us he was worth it and changing its course forever. In that moment, my mind wasn't on X. Perhaps it should have been. I remember I was thinking it was the first time since the day one of my job at Lee & Lee that I understood what futures were. One thing that stood out to me during the fallout from the crypto bloodbath of May 2022 is that it was those who were furthest from the impending storm who were the most vocal about its inevitability. My side project for the last quarter had been to build the opposite of a kid's playpen, a ring-fenced investors' corner for the FOMO Gen Xers and elder millennials among us who wanted in on the crypto economy but didn't care to own a video of Jerry burning his mouth on hot food. And like spawning fish heavy with roe and looking for the best chances of survival, I'd guided Rays into the biggest ocean I knew, Terra's UST. I'll spare you the blow-by-blow of our stages of belief, disbelief, outrage, claims of sabotage, hodl, and catching the falling knife however we could. The short of it was, at the end of the scramble, I tried to silence the noise in my head and the fingers that pointed at me through every text box on every screen by taking up pen and paper like I hadn't done in at least a year. Moments later, I was in a Zoom with X. X hadn't left his new River Valley apartment since May 9th, and we followed his lead working from home that week. So, I took the idea about futures and ran with it, I said to my laptop's camera. Ix's face was tense, and I could see the tightness on his upper lip. Okay. People have already been coming up with parody outcomes to our videos and uploading them on social media. Since our last sub-collection, those videos have begun to gain on the originals in clicks. I'll drop you the stats later. What I'm getting at is, what if the hot pot videos are just the introductions, just the free openings, the real a project of probable outcomes? You want to start giving away the hot pot collection for free? Ix's face tightened further. I thought about how we started with Ix hanging on to us and somehow ended with ourselves answering to him. I wanted to poke his eyes through the lens or at least pick something up and hurl it at his face on the screen. But then I heard the tapping of a little hand on the outside of the door. The door inched open. 2 more minutes, baby. You can listen to another story. I smiled at the little round cheeks pressed in the crack of the door. I swiped on my phone and selected one of the longer audiobook narrations and cast the stories to the speaker on her phone in her room. Keep it together for her. If I misstep and end up having to hunt for a job, now would be the worst possible time to have human race on my CV. I ran my tongue over my teeth and continued. Okay. The real value is in the curiosity for the unknown, the future. Take Prawnhead, for example. We released the video, Jerry shelling a prawn and eating it. That gets minted and put up for free, but now we mint 3 more outcomes. A, Jerry loves the prawn. B, Jerry recoils because it's too spicy. C, Jerry finds it's undercooked, so he dunks it in the pot again. Those 3 outcomes we mint and drop for trading. Here's a sample of what it could look like. Here's a sample of what it could look like. Ix steepled his fingers and leaned closer to his screen. I imagine I heard his breath at the moment it quickened when he realized how he could sell it. On dark days, when I look back at that moment, I think that the signs were so obvious in that Zoom call. Whatever I think I knew or didn't know, the things I thought I could do, I had to do for my family, I had to have felt where this was going from the way Ix replied. What he said was, I suppose the volatility in our forward curve would depend on the unpredictability of the variables introduced to the hot pot scenario. We minted the first derivatives of Prawnhead to a first-hour sellout. The outcomes were rather tame and reasonable, in the vein of the model I first showed Ix on Zoom. It was a smart move for Ix because it lulled Jerry and I into a false sense of expectation that this was how it was always going to be. Reasonable, within our control. It was a Wednesday night and we were closing for the week with all the planned derivatives launched and just one more in the pipeline. When Jerry finally said, I have a question. What exactly do we have in mind for outcome N? Our Saw chooses to exit the game because he's had enough of this shit. Jerry winked. Yeah, Jerry, you'll always be the driver in this, I said. I know now that I said it to myself so I could watch the numbers rise and the IRL futures market grow and our individual wallets with it and still think I was a good friend. And the only direction it's going is up, said Ix. There's increasingly strong volume on both sides of the ask and it looks like it will carry, even if we do nothing further to help it. Plenty of unique users jacking the bids up just to get in. My heart and head were light as I rapidly texted a message to my partner, thanking them for holding the fort on the kid for the night, and gathered my phone and e-reader from the table to pocket them. The phone buzzed as I closed my fingers around it. WhatsApp message preview. Dad, Hui Jun, good evening. I hear talk that you are behind the market leading. I killed the screen and slipped the phone into my pocket. When I looked up, I met Ix's eye. And I could have sworn he had read my dad's message from across the table. I felt the blood rush to fill my cheeks. I saw Dad squinting over his print newspaper and calling his remisier friend to counter-check what he was reading about me. And the blood flowed right through my eyeballs, jetted in my brain, and made me feel faint. I said, let's hit the Kyongsik bars before Pratas. First round's on me. Asa clutched his stomach and groaned. He tried to speak, but something must have hit him again on the inside and he winced and doubled over. Swallow the charcoal tablets, I said, pushing past the swivel chair between us and cutting into Ix's frame. And have the decency to stop rolling, I said to Ix. I pressed the charcoal tablets into Jerry's palm and he knocked them back, crunching hard and swallowing. As he began to relax, I told him I was booking a car to take us to the hospital anyway, just to have it looked at. Then I turned to Ix. That can't have just been laxatives. I said, X was cool. It was. Although the forward contract doesn't specify the volume or any other limiting factors for that matter. I saw the pieces fall into place before me. And still, I gave it one last stab. That was bad faith. Or badly written contract, X said. I saw his eyes disengage, even though I was close enough to tear them out. He was looking at his Tompang Market square board. I didn't have to read his open chat screens with his broker to know he was trading under an anonymous account. You've been fucking bidding up outcome end while watching Jerry possibly die? No one's gonna die, Jin. X laughed at me. Don't you see? You've built a thing of beauty. Don't tell me you never knew where this could go and what it would take. I bet your old man is prouder of you now than he's ever been. I helped Jerry up and threw his arm over my shoulder. Jerry's breath smelled oddly sharp and he was breathing heavily. Before we left, I pulled open the drawer where we threw all of Human Razor's bank paperwork that was to be filed by our unthanked accountant at the end of the day. Of the year. The bank authorization token was exactly where it was supposed to be, stuck to the underside of the drawer ceiling with a bit of blue tack. Good old DBS and the relics of the physical banking era. I pocketed it, not caring that X saw the action. I wanted him to. You're not going anywhere, Jin, X shouted after us. Nothing will be as good after this. It took thousands of dollars of therapy for me to pick apart and face the things I'd done and what the therapist insists I didn't. A part of me still thinks that she's not entirely correct because she can only know what I tell her, measured against a bag of standardized theory. But it felt good just to talk uninterrupted. It took many more months of distance to understand that X was not only a raider, but a species of parasite that stayed and ate us from within. The only difference was that I willingly let him in and abetted him. 4 years after Jerry and I started Human Race to prove that we could be good at something, I was once again in the pits of career embarrassment, and this time I'm alone. Jerry was discharged after a night at the General Hospital. He reminds me so often that he doesn't blame me, but I haven't had the face to speak with him after we wound down the show. Above me, the long blades of the ceiling fan slice the white light and throw shadows to the green table, where my untouched glass of Milo Dinosaur threatens to slide in the puddle of its own condensation. I pull my phone out the second I feel it vibrate. It's only after I click on the message that I realize I've forgotten my once automatic response to discreetly check the lock screen message preview first. Too late. My heart quickens, and I feel its beat in my throat. What's that message? Dad. Hui Jin. Happy birthday. Love you, Dad. The sound of my heart pounding in my skull does not quiet. For some reason, that doesn't alarm me. I feel calmer than I've felt in months. It's as though the invisible dance that's been going on in the space above my head has finally equalized and come to an end. Happy birthday to me. That's Contango. Thank you.
Eliane Boey, reading Contango. Thank you so much, Eliane. That was really fun. It's our custom here at Story Hour to just pause, take a breath between authors, just to settle, regroup, and refocus. So we're going to do that for a moment. We're just going to just chill, take a breath or two, and then we'll proceed to the rest of the program. Eliane Boey, everybody. Thank you. Our next reader is Vajra Chandrasekera. Vajra is from Colombo, Sri Lanka. His debut novel, The Saint of Bright Doors, won the Nebula, newly minted Nebula Award, and Crawford Awards, and was a New York Times Notable Book of 2023. His second novel, Rakesfall, is out this year, 2024. His short fiction, poetry, and nonfiction has appeared in Analog, West Branch, and the LA Times, among others. He has worked as an editor for Strange Horizons and Afterlives, the year's best death stories, and as a judge for the Dream Foundry Writing Contest and the Salam Award. He is online at vajra.me and probably on whatever social media still exists at the time that you are hearing this. Vajra, welcome to Story Hour. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Um, Thank you for inviting me. As Dan so kindly noted, my debut novel, The Saint of Light Tours, just won the Nebula this past weekend. It's up for the Locus and Hugo as well. And it just came out in paperback in both the US and UK. My second novel is actually out literally next week. Comes out on Tuesday. So please do check those out if you like books. Tonight I'm reading an older short story. It's one of my own favorites. It's never been read or recorded in audio before. It was originally published in Shimmer nearly a decade ago in September 2014. It's about a fairly universal experience, I think, and a low-tech one after Eliane's. It's about getting into an argument with your taxi driver until you're not sure which one of you is real. One thing some folks might not know, the taxi in this story is called a tuk-tuk, which is a very common kind of taxi in South Asia and in Southeast Asia. It's a small, often rickety vehicle, um, a motorized three-wheeled rickshaw, also called a three-wheeler or auto rickshaw. They're popularly called tuk-tuks because it's onomatopoeic. The engine sounds like that, a sputtering noise, and goes tuk 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 tuk. So the story is called Dharmas by Vajra Chandrasekera. The tuk-tuk driver spits a small fiery globule out of the side of his mouth. It spins as it flies, striated by angular momentum, and it burns a hole in the street, burrowing instantly into the asphalt. I crane my neck outside the vehicle as the tiny bubbling crater recedes into the distance, watching the curl of smoke until I have to duck back inside to avoid decapitation. Traffic is so loud we can only speak by shouting, but I still think I can hear the fireball hissing, and then it's gone, lost beneath and behind in the past, heading for the Mohorovičić discontinuity while the street moves on. The tuk-tuk driver's name is Pitta, with an I, according to the worn label on the back of his seat. Pitta is telling me a story about digging a hole to hell, which is also the story of his life. And I'm trying to explain to him why his life is meaningless, while he does the same to me. We are locked in ideological struggle, because ideology is ontology, and we cannot live in each other's worlds. I can't remember how long we've been arguing. In 1989, Peter says, I was a student in Russia, interning at the Kola Super Deep Borehole project. All his stories start like this, in the deeps of his past, beneath the crust of the mundane. I was there when they dug the deepest, the day they decided to stop. Do you know why they stopped, brother? When I speak to him, I dress myself to the back of his head, a great dome covered imperfectly in oily curls, his scalp unnaturally pale in contrast to his umber skin. He, meanwhile, does not catch my eye in the rearview mirrors, but speaks to my disembodied voice, as if I were a bourgeois ghost and not quite human, bruised and embodied on the rattling back seat of his death trap. Like every passenger he has ever driven, I have placed myself at serious risk of injury or death. So he owes me a life, whether he takes mine or not. This is why I'm compelled to undo his narrative. Snopes.com, I say in triumph, waving the phone at him where I have the page open. They say they dug a well to hell and heard the howling of the damned, but it was a hoax. He glances backwards, so quick that I see no pupils, only a slice of his mad yellow sclera. Who are you going to believe, the internet or an eyewitness? Anyway, that's not the story. Peter is always interrupting his own stories, shifting his weight like a boxer when I punch a hole in his defense. I heard the other day, Peter says, that Putin is starting the project up again. They will open up the hole and send soldiers through. The Russians intend to capture a piece of hell. Which hell? I asked. I have long since lost count of such things. We learned the superstitions of our ancestors in school, handled safely with thick gloves and goggles, sanitized by Mahavamsa and Marxists alike. There are at least 9 hells. 21, he says, disapproving. Or 28, pick your Purana. Which so? I concede the point quickly, never argue the Vedas with a Marxist. Which one did you find? The one under Russia, obviously, Peter says. I'm not interested in sophistry. This is the kind of thing Peter says when he engages in the rankest sophistry. Soon, he says, people will be able to literally go to hell. Hell will become a territory that can be contested, colonized. The tuk-tuk swerves alarmingly, bumping against a passing car and scraping its side. The noise is like something dying. And I smell paint and gasoline. Peter swears, and the car's driver gives him the finger. We don't stop. Nobody ever stops. Peter even speeds up a little. The tuk-tuk is open on both sides, not aerodynamic. The wind tunnels directly into me in the back seat. I'm the focus of all the drag, as if our headlong rush is actually an attempt to erode me away. The wind is hot and dry, a sirocco, formed in concrete canyons, blistering in the sun. My face feels dusty and abraded. The skin dry and hot. I'm forgetting the story of my life. Along with Peter's name, the label on the back of his seat has a hotline number for complaints. Am I driving safely? It asks disingenuously. I tell him I'm contemplating calling. And also that hell is not real. But this is a weak rejoinder. You don't have a scientific mind, Peter scoffs, deservingly contemptuous. All territories are stories told by empire. Otherwise, a place is just stones and trees. Our ancestors once worshipped stones and trees, I say automatically, as if it were catechism. In a way, it is the catechism of curated history. This is what we were taught as children. In ancient days, our ancestors worshipped stones and trees, serpents and demons before Buddha came. Then for a while, they worshipped Buddha. Then empire came, and for a while, they worshipped empire as well. Then came nation, the horse-headed twins Marx and Market, and so many others, so many warring, swiving gods that heaven is crowded, and our sins flow uncountable like water. This is why our hells are so many that they must be numbered. To follow any law, we break many others. We exist only in violation, always on the cusp of being unmade. A new regime, a new revolution, a new philosophy, a new definition of what it means to exist. We might become hyperreal like Peter, or almost unreal like me. Argument is life. Definition is survival. Peter hastens to add that he does not support Putin's imperial ambitions. He merely sees them as an inevitable part of history's machinations. Empire is the means, Peter says, by which ontologically suspect entities like Lanka or Russia or hell are transformed into territory. All the worlds are void and without form until empire moves over them. I'm about to speak when Peter sticks his own head out of the tuk-tuk, looking back the way we came. His hands are steady, and the vehicle does not waver at first, but my heart does, and my counter-argument is lost on my tongue. It tastes like salt. All I can wonder is whether his name is an error, a typo for Peter, and whether it looks the same on his birth certificate. That's the hand of empire right there. The idea that his very name could be an error made real. So perhaps it makes sense that he thinks so much of it. How well both forms of the name suit him, though. The iconic solidity, the suggestion of magma beneath his crust. The vehicle begins to tilt, alarming, while Peter holds his pose, still looking backwards while we speed up. I'm breathing fast but shallow. I don't want to seem like I'm panicking because that's a cheap way to lose an argument. I try to think slow thoughts, not of collision at high speed, not of dying in mangled metal. What are you looking at? I snap finally. How do you claim to know what Putin intends to do? God's his witness. Will you watch the... And the rest of my words are lost in the roar of a truck overtaking us. I startle, jerking away and clutching at the sides of the vehicle. The smog of its exhaust in my face makes me cough. A snail crossing the street, Peter says, facing forward calmly, as if he had only been waiting for me to ask. He corrects the subtle drift of the vehicle out of our lane, away from certain death back to a mere probability. But, he says, too late. A vehicle has already crushed it. Why, you wanted to help it across? I'm almost laughing in relief, but only almost. I must put as much scorn in my voice as possible. Peter has his entire vehicle and our deadly unending motion to use as a part of his argument. I have only voice and words. I have to remind myself that I can still feel my extremities, that I'm flesh and blood. Without argument, I'm fading. In Peter's world, I'm not sure I exist. He wants to make me a ghost, one way or the other. Not a kin demon or a hungry ghost or a dispossessed lumpen proletarian, but that bourgeois ghost with clanking imperial chains. It was an opportunity to do good, Peter says. He sounds bitter at having missed it. I'm piecing together his hierarchy of gods. Buddha over Marx. Empire is the mother of nation. Above them all, the need to assert definition on the world. Call it law or Dharma. This last is the only way in which we are the same. Snails are stupid, I say. At this, he lapses into sullen silence, and I rejoice, but the argument is not yet settled in favor of his Dharma or mine. The world is still in flux. Somewhere, a little fireball, digging a hole deep into the earth. On the sea of magma under crust, continents in slow imperial drift. The ghosts of the chains grow heavier on my wrists, while my bones grow light and feverish. There are at least 22 hells, I tell him. I'm dug in too deep now, too close to the magma. Or 29, I say, pick your Purana. What I mean is, there is one more than they say. Peter twists his head completely around to look at me, swiveling like an owl. I fight the urge to scream, or to scream at him again for not watching the road while driving. Instead, I try to brace my feet more firmly against the floor, though I cannot get purchase. He doesn't say anything for a long moment, during which time my heart sputters and speeds. I can't meet his amber eyes because I can see the cars and the buses and the trucks in front of us swerving away to avoid an accident, the bleating horns growing frantic. I flinch at every scream of tearing metal. Peter is focused on me, and we're moving faster than ever. My vision is narrowing to a tunnel, focused on the inside of Peter's mouth when he speaks, which is a hot, glowing red. What makes you think this world is a hell? Peter says finally. He doesn't seem angry, only interested. Because the snail, I say. We've drifted into the wrong lane, and I've given up on even the pretense of calm. Both arms extended to grasp the frame of the tuk-tuk. We are meat for the grinder in this world. But Peter doesn't seem convinced. The Odyssey means nothing to him because Buddha taught him he deserved it. Because we're not special, I say. Behind Peter, a car turns too sharply to avoid us and crashes into a motorcyclist. who flips and arcs across my field of vision. I can't see him land, but even over the din, I think I hear the crunch. In all the worlds, why should we be special? I say. There are more hells than heavens. The definition of hell is pain. Are we not in pain? If they in heaven cracked the sky and listened to us screaming, wouldn't they call us the howling damned? And Peter finally laughs, turning to face forward again. My grip on the vehicle tightens, and I feel solidity in my bones. The ghosts of chains grow fainter, though they will never fade. That's true, he says, weaving between two buses that scrape the vehicle on both sides, metal screeching so long and so loud that I hold my breath until it's over. When we come out alive on the other side, I lean out the side and spit a fireball so spherical, so perfect, that it could have been a sun. That is it. Thank you so much for having me. And while I'm here, I also want to add that the Gaza municipality has a fundraiser to help them rebuild destroyed water wells and networks to supply clean water to Palestinians in Gaza City as summer temperatures continue to rise. This is essential, life-saving, life-giving work, and you can and should both donate to it and promote it to your networks. It's very easy to find. Just go to the Gaza municipality's website at mogaza.org. That's mogaza.org. There's a green button right at the top of your screen that says Gaza Help Campaign, which will take you directly to the fundraiser page. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vajra. That was a wonderful story.
And the way it swerved between the humor and the ominous and the horrific. I wondered, is this what it feels like writing in a tuk-tuk?
It's actually
All
not
that
that bad, but I exaggerated a little bit.
Yeah.
A Western journalist once had this famous article. I forget what this was. I read it in the 90s. It was like one of those tour type, like travel writing type articles, and he described the experience as being Mad Max come to life, which is absolutely exaggerating, but that's what I had in mind when I was writing this.
That was a wonderful story. Thank you so much, our readers tonight, Vajra Chandrasekera and Eliane Boey. Really fine evening. Thank you very much. And thank you all for coming back again to join us at Story Hour. I want to thank my co-host, Laura Blackwell, and SIFWA for our second year of giving us a SIFWA Givers Grant so that we can pay our web hosting fees and our Zoom fees and all that good stuff so we can keep bringing you Story Hour. And next week, please come back because we have Cynthia Gomez and Nadine Aurora Tabing. So until then, thanks everybody, and we'll see you next time.